Hello and welcome to study session 16 of Daily Memory Lab. In today's study session, we will revise round number 4 of E-Waybill chapter, the last 6 pages, and then we will see round number 3 of Supply Under GST from page 43 to 52. Then we will see round 2 of what we read yesterday, page 66 to 72, Supply Under GST, and depending on the time availability, we will see maybe 4 to 5 pages fresh today. Before we start, let us set the intention. Now I am going to study for 30 to 60 minutes with full focus. In this study session, I lower down all my expectations and embrace imperfection. I may or may not get big breakthroughs in this study session, and I am totally okay with it. I will most likely make mistakes in the next 30 to 60 minutes, and if I make them, I am not going to judge myself. I embrace my mistakes and reset my ambitions. My goal is to not achieve perfection. My goal is only to make the next 30 to 60 minutes. My goal is only to make a tiny progress in the next 30 to 60 minutes. On that note, let us begin. E-Waybill, page number 20. Situations where E-Waybill is not required to be generated. Notwithstanding anything explained above, no E-Waybill is required to be generated in the following cases: where the goods being transported are the ones given below: liquefied petroleum gas for supply to household and non-domestic exempted category customers, kerosene oil sold under PDS, postal baggage transported by Department of Posts, natural or cultured pearls and precious or semi-precious stones, precious metals and metals clad with precious metal, jewelry, goldsmiths and silversmiths wares, and other articles excepting imitation jewelry. 7117 chapter. Currency, used personal effects and household effects, coral, unworked and worked coral. Okay. Second point, where the goods are being transported by a non-motorized conveyance, where the goods are being transported from the customs port, airport, air cargo complex and land customs station to an inland. Second point, where the goods are being transported by a non-motorized conveyance, where the goods are being transported from the customs port, airport, air cargo complex and a land customs station to an inland container depot or a container freight station for clearance by customs, in respect of movement of goods within such areas as are notified under Rule 138.14d of the state or union territory GST rules in that particular state or union territory, where the goods other than de-oiled cake being transported are exempt from tax, where the goods being transported are alcoholic liquor for human consumption, petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit commonly known as petrol, natural gas or aviation turbine fuel, where the supply of goods being transported is treated as no supply under Schedule 3 of the CGST Act, where the goods are being transported under customs bond from an inland container depot or a container freight station to a customs port, airport, air cargo complex and land customs station, from one customs station or customs port to another customs station or customs port, or under customs supervision or under customs seal, where the goods being transported are transit cargo from or to Nepal or Bhutan, where the goods being transported are exempt under notification number 7 2017, supply of goods by the CSD to the unit run canteens or to the authorized customers, and supply of goods by the unit run canteens to the authorized customers. And notification number 26 of 2017, supply of heavy water and nuclear fuels by Department of Atomic Energy to Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. Any movement of goods caused by defense formation under Ministry of Defense as a consignor or consignee, where the consignor of goods is the central government of any state or a local authority for transport of goods by rail, where empty cargo containers are being transported. Next, where the goods are being transported up to a distance of 20 kilometers from the place of the business of the consignor to a weighbridge for weighment, or from the weighbridge back to the place of business of the said consignor, subject to the condition that the movement of goods is accompanied by a delivery challan issued in accordance with Rule 55, where empty cylinders for packing of liquefied petroleum gas are being moved for reasons other than supply. Documents and devices to be carried by a person in charge of a conveyance. Rule 138A. The person in charge of a conveyance shall carry the invoice or bill of supply or delivery challan, as the case may be, and a copy of the e-way bill in physical form, or the e-way bill number in electronic form, or mapped to an RFID embedded onto the conveyance, except in case of movement of goods by rail or by air or vessel in such a manner as may be notified by the commissioner. So the basic document should be invoice, bill of supply and delivery challan, and then it should be accompanied by a copy of e-way bill in physical form or e-way bill number in electronic form, or mapped to an RFID. So carrying e-way bill number in electronic form implies that person in charge of conveyance can merely code the e-way bill number to the proper tax officer. Tax officer will do all the requisite verifications based on that number. So you just have to just say the e-way bill number orally to the tax officer, and they will do the necessary verification. RFID, how it is, RFIDs are radio frequency identifier distribution used for identification. So now that I googled about it, so it is similar to this FASTag thing. So vehicle is going, the QR, whatever the e-way bill that you have generated will be kind of embedded in this standard QR, it seems. So based on which, if the tax officer has to scan this, they will exactly know the e-way bill details. So that is RFID. So we had two open loops in this chapter. One was over dimensional cargo, which was like big fleet of cargo, like the trucks that carry with wheels of 25-30 wheels. They carry like airplane wings, all those things, like big pumps and pipes. So those are over dimensional cargos. And this, we had another thing, RFID, radio frequency identification device. So this is the second thing which we clarified now. Invoice reference number instead of tax invoice. In case e-invoice is produced, the quick response code, the QR code having an embedded invoice reference number in it, may be produced electronically for verification by the proper officer instead of the physical copy of such tax invoice. So not just that e-way bill you can produce electronically or through some code, even the main invoice you can show through some QR code. In such a case, the registered person will not have to upload the information in Part A of e-way bill for generation of e-way bill, and the same shall be auto-populated by the common portal on the basis of the information furnished in the prescribed form relating to e-invoice. So that now I have my invoice in electronic form, the Part A of e-way bill, I can automatically copy paste the details. The common portal will auto-populate the details. The commissioner may, by notification, require a class of transporters to obtain a unique RFID and get the said device embedded onto the vehicle, onto the conveyance, and map the e-way bill to the RFID prior to the movement of goods. Okay. Document instead of e-way bill. Where circumstances so warrant, the commissioner may, by notification, require the person in charge of the conveyance to carry the following documents instead of e-way bill. So if commissioner thinks he can give some special permission, so instead of carrying e-way bill, you can just carry delivery tax invoice, bill of supply or bill of entry, or delivery challan where the goods are transported for reasons other than by way of supply. Okay. So they say that instead of e-way bill, just carry the invoice and your thing will be done. You can move the goods. Okay. Verification of documents and conveyances. Rule 138B. The commissioner or an officer empowered by him in this behalf may authorize the proper officer to intercept any conveyance to verify the e-way bill in physical or electronic form for all interstate and intrastate movement of goods. The commissioner shall get RFID So any proper officer can intercept any conveyance to verify the e-way bill as well as the movement of goods. The commissioner shall get RFID readers installed at places where the verification of movement of goods is required to be carried out. So the readers will be there wherever the verification is to be carried out. And the verification of movement of vehicles shall be done through such device readers where the e-way bill has been mapped with the said device. Okay. Physical verification of conveyances shall be carried out by proper officer authorized by the commissioner or an officer empowered by him in this behalf. However, on receipt of specific information on evasion of tax, physical verification of a specific conveyance can also be carried out by any other officer after obtaining necessary approval of the commissioner or an officer authorized by him in this behalf. Okay. 16th point. Inspection and verification of goods. Summary report of every inspection of goods in transit shall be recorded online by the proper officer in Part A of a prescribed form within 24 hours of inspection, and the final report in Part B of the said form shall be recorded within 3 days of such inspection. Okay, so Part A within 24 hours, and the final report in Part B. The initial report in Part A will be given within 24 hours. The final report in Part B of said form shall be given within 3 days of such inspection. However, where the circumstances so warrant, the commissioner or any other officer authorized by him may, on sufficient cause being shown, extend the time for recording of the final report in Part B of said form for a further period not exceeding 3 days. The period of 24 hours, or as the case may be 3 days, shall be counted from the midnight of the date on which vehicle was inspected. Where the physical verification of goods being transported on any conveyance has been done during transit at one place within the state or union territory or in any other state or union territory, no further verification of the said conveyance shall be carried out in the state or union territory unless a specific information relating to evasion of tax is made subsequently. Okay. Facility for uploading information regarding detention of vehicle 138D. Where a vehicle has been intercepted and detained for a period exceeding 30 minutes, the transporter may upload the said information in specified form on the common portal. Blocking of e-way bill generation facility 138E. Blocking of e-way bill generation facility means disabling a taxpayer from generating the e-way bill. Blocking of GSTIN for e-way bill generation would only be for the defaulting supplier GSTIN and not for the defaulting recipient or transporter GSTIN. Suspended GSTIN cannot generate e-way bill as supplier. However, the suspended GSTIN can get the e-way bill generated as recipient or as transporter. As per Rule 138E, no person, including consignor or consignee, transporter, an e-commerce operator, or a courier agency, shall be allowed to furnish the information in Part A form of GST EWB1 in respect of any outward movement of goods of a registered person who, being a person paying tax under composition scheme, has not furnished the statement for payment of self-assessed tax for 2 consecutive quarters. Being a person paying tax under regular scheme, has not furnished the returns for a consecutive period of 2 tax periods, or being a person paying tax under regular scheme has not furnished GSTIR 1 for any 2 months or quarters as the case may be, being a person whose registration has been suspended under the provision of Rule 21A of CGST rules. So if you get disqualified by any of the above scenarios, then you will not be able to generate e-way bill as a supplier. So the government says that you are not filing return, you are not filing GSTR1. So I disqualify you from generating e-way bill, outward e-way bills. You can receive goods, but you cannot supply goods because you have not filed the returns properly. However, Commissioner may, on receipt of an application from a registered person in prescribed form, on sufficient cause being shown, and for reasons to be recorded in writing by order in prescribed form, allow furnishing of the said information in Part A of Form GST EWB 01 subject to prescribed conditions and restrictions. An order rejecting said request shall not be passed without giving the said person a reasonable opportunity of being heard. The permission granted or rejected by the Commissioner or Commissioner of State Tax or Commissioner of Union Territory shall be deemed to be granted or, as the case may be, rejected by the Commissioner. It may be noted that the expressions transported by railways, transportation of goods by railways, transportation of goods by rail, and movement of goods by rail used in the provisions discussed above does not include cases where leasing of parcel space by railways takes place. Okay, now Mr. A registered person paying tax under a regular scheme in Delhi, has not filed GSTR 1 for the last 2 months. Mr. B of Haryana, a regular return filer, wants to generate an e-way bill for the goods to be supplied to Mr. A. So in this situation, A can get the e-way bill generated because he is going to be the recipient only. So he is not the supplier. So he can get the e-way bill generated. Next, Mr. A wants to generate an e-way bill in respect of an outward supply of goods to Mr. H. E-way bill generation is blocked in this case as it is an outward movement of goods for Mr. A. Mr. A wants to generate an e-way bill in respect of an outward supply of goods to Mr. H. E-way bill generation is blocked in this case because it is an outward supply for Mr. A and he has not filed GSTR 1 for the past 2 months. Okay. Now on that note, the last thing is Rule 55A. Person in charge of the conveyance shall carry a copy of the tax invoice or the bill of supply issued in accordance with the provisions of Rules 46, 46A and 49 in a case where such person is not required to carry e-way bill under these rules. Okay, so on that note, we have completed e-way bill chapter for the 4th time, slowly but steadily. Now let me know in the comments if you have been studying with me from day 1. We started on 3rd of October. It's been 2 weeks. We finished this chapter 4 rounds in the last 2 weeks. So you let me know, how did you feel about this chapter at the end of round 1 and how do you feel after round 4? If you ask me, my thoughts are that I was totally raw after reading just the first round. Many open questions got created after first round. Slowly after round 2 some things got cleared. After round 3 some things got cleared. After round 4 a lot of things have cleared. So I am almost, I would say 93 to 95% confident about this chapter, which means when I read a provision I exactly know what they mean. So let us wait for round 5. When we finish round 5, we will do this recall sessions much later during our preparation. Maybe around the last 30 days before the exam, around first week of December, we will start our recall sessions. So we will take a chapter like e-way bill and recall it like a freestyle recall. Whatever provisions that we know, let us recall everything. So we will do it for say 20 to 30 minutes per chapter. Okay, on that note, let us go to the next segment, which is round 3 of page number 43 to 52. Supply under GST. Page number 43. Let us start from here, 43 to 52. Importation of services, para 4 of schedule 1. So currently we are in schedule 1. What is schedule 1? Activities that are still deemed as supply even if there is no consideration. Importation of services by a person from a related person or from his establishments located outside India without consideration in the course or furtherance of business shall be treated as supply. Jumru Associates received legal consultancy services from its head office located in Malaysia. The head office has rendered such consultancy services free of cost to its branch office. Since Jumru Associates and the head office are related persons, services received by Jumru Associates will qualify as supply even though the head office has not charged anything from it. Okay. Chakmak, a proprietor registered in Delhi, has sought architect services from his son located in the US with respect to his newly constructed house in Delhi. Although services have been received by Chakmak without consideration from his son, a related person, it will not qualify as supply since the same has not been received in the course or furtherance of business. So you have to understand, excuse me. So you have to understand from establishments located outside India without consideration in the course or furtherance of business. So this in the course or furtherance of business is essential. If it is not received for business purpose, then even if it is received from related person without consideration, it will be taxed. It will not be considered as supply. Therefore, if you receive anything with consideration, forget about whether business purpose or personal purpose, it has to be deemed as supply. If you receive it without consideration and if you receive it from related or distinct person in the course or furtherance of business, supply. If you receive it without consideration for purpose other than that of business, then it is not a supply. In the preceding paras, we have discussed the provisions of Schedule 1, which enumerates cases where an activity is treated as supply even though it is undertaken free of cost. In this backdrop, let us now examine whether the items given free of cost in case of some of the sales promotion schemes qualify as supply or not. A number of sales promotion schemes are commonly employed by the businesses to increase sales volume or to encourage the use or trial of a product or service so that new customers get attracted towards their products. For instance, certain sections of trade and industry such as pharmaceutical companies often provide drug samples to their stockists, dealers, medical practitioners, etc. Or sometimes companies announce offers like buy one get one free, that is buy one soap and get one soap free for free, or get one toothbrush free along with the purchase of toothpaste. As we have already seen that as per section 7 subsection 1 clause A, the goods or services which are supplied free of cost without any consideration shall not be treated as supply except in case of activities mentioned in Schedule 1. In view of the same, few sales promotion schemes have been examined as under free samples which are supplied free of cost without any consideration do not qualify as supply under GST. Free samples and gifts, samples which are supplied free of cost without any consideration do not qualify as supply under GST except where the activity falls within the ambit of Schedule 1. Buy one get one free offer. It may appear at first glance that in case of offers like buy one get one free, one item is being supplied free of cost without any consideration. In fact, it is not an individual supply of free goods but a case of two or more individual supplies where a single price is being charged for the entire supply. It can at best be treated as supplying two goods for the price of one. Taxability of such supply will be dependent upon as to whether the supply is a composite supply or a mixed supply, and the rate of tax shall be determined accordingly. Venkat hired a professional firm based in the UK to receive the legal consultancy services for his family dispute. So this is not in the course or furtherance of business. The services by Venkat received by Venkat, in case such services are received free of cost, such services are received for a consideration of $1,000. Now, in the first situation, there is no consideration, there is no element of business, so it is not supply. In second case, there is a consideration, so it doesn't matter whether you receive it in course or furtherance of business or not, it is still considered as supply. So option B is the right answer. There has always been an ambiguity as to whether activities or transactions involving supply of goods or services by any person other than an individual to its members or vice versa fall within the purview of supply or not. Clause A of section 7 subsection 1 brings in the certainty that said activities or transactions are covered within the scope of supply under GST and ensures the levy of GST on such activities or transactions. Okay, so activities or transactions between a person other than an individual and its members or constituents for consideration. The activities or transactions involving supply of goods or services between a person other than an individual and its members or constituents for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration are covered within the ambit of supply as per section 7 subsection 1 clause AA. Further, explanation to clause AA in clause AA to section 7 subsection 1 clarifies that for the purpose of this clause, such person, association, club, etc., and its members or constituents shall be deemed to be two separate persons, and the supply of activities or transactions between them shall be deemed to take place from one such person to another. The explanation starts with a non-obstante clause and shall therefore have an overriding effect over anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, or any judgment, decree, or court order of any court or tribunal or authority. The aforesaid explanation prevents the application of doctrine of mutuality by such persons. So, Resident Welfare Association of Sanskriti Society supplies air conditioners to its members at a concessional price. Resident Welfare Association collects maintenance charges from its members for services provided. Here, in both the aforesaid examples, it shall be deemed that the Resident Welfare Association and its members are two separate persons, and it shall be deemed that the supply has taken place from Resident Welfare Association to its members. Activities or transactions to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Section 7 subsection 1a classifies certain activities or transactions constituting supply either as supply of goods or supply of services. Schedule 2 to the CGST Act contains the list of activities or transactions which have been classified either as supply of goods or supply of service. This helps in mitigating the ambiguities which existed in the earlier laws. Under earlier tax regime, the restaurants used to charge both service tax and VAT on the value of food served. This is so because both sale of goods and provision of service were involved, and therefore taxable event under both the statutes, respective VAT law and service law, got triggered. Under GST, the supply by a restaurant is treated as composite supply, since supply of food and service is naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Further, entry 6b of Schedule 2 specifically provides that such composite supply shall be treated as supply of service. Hence, the entire value of invoice shall be treated as value of service and leviable to GST accordingly. The matters listed out in Schedule 2 are primarily those which had been entangled in litigation in the earlier regime owing to their complex nature and susceptibility to double taxation. So, we will see the scenarios. First activity is transfer. Any transfer of title in goods treated as supply of goods. Any transfer of rights in goods or undivided share in goods without transfer of title thereof. Renting of a machinery, supply of services. Any transfer of title in goods under an agreement which stipulates that property in goods shall pass at a future date upon payment of full consideration as agreed. Dhruva Capital supplied goods on hire purchase basis to customers. Optima manufacturers supplies toys to retailers on sale or return basis. Supply of goods. Land and building. Any lease, tenancy, easement, license to occupy land, supply of services. Any lease or letting out of building, including a commercial, industrial, or residential complex for business or commerce, wholly or partly, supply of services. Treatment or process. Any treatment or process which is applied to another person's goods, supply of services. Job work, job work contracts. Okay, transfer of business assets. Goods forming part of business assets are transferred or disposed of by or under directions of persons carrying on the business so as no longer to form part of those assets. Supply of goods. Goods held or used for business are put to private use or are made available to any person for use for any purpose other than business by or under directions of person carrying on the business. A person manufacturing and selling wooden furniture takes one chair manufactured by him for use at his house. Supply of services. Goods forming part of assets of any business carried on by a person who ceases to be a taxable person shall be deemed to be supplied by him in the course or furtherance of his business immediately before he ceases to be a taxable person. Arun, a trader, is winding up his business. Any goods left in stock shall be deemed to be supplied by him, except business is transferred as a going concern to another person. Business is carried on by a personal representative who is deemed to be a taxable person. So in this case, it is still transferred, treated as supply of goods only. Renting of immovable property, commercial complex, precincts of a religious place, renting of property to an educational institution, all deemed as supply of services. Construction of complex building civil structure. Just to keep this short, I will just quickly summarize this. I am constructing a building complex or a civil structure. If I construct it fully without receiving any consideration from any party, I put my own money, made the building, and got the completion certificate also from the competent authority. In such a situation, after that, I sold the goods, I sold the building to a party and received the consideration either fully or partly. In that situation, it will be deemed like supply of goods because I finished the building first without knowing who is going to be the buyer. So it's like I manufactured a product and then I sold it. But in the other situation where, let's say, I'm constructing the building, but I knew who was the party, I knew who was going to buy in advance. So I started receiving consideration in part. So we book the flat and then the construction will start, isn't it? So in that situation, it is deemed to be considered supply of services. Okay, temporary transfer or permitting use or enjoyment of any intellectual property right. Supply of services, OTT, renting, OTTs, they rent movie titles, isn't it? Development, design, programming, customization, adaptation, upgradation, enhancement, implementation of IT software services. Agreeing to obligation to refrain agreeing to an obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or situation or to do an act. Supply of services. Next, security deposit forfeited in the event of cancellation of tour package by the customer. Supply of services. Transfer of right to use any goods for any purpose, whether for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Renting, it's like similar to rent. So services only. Works contract, composite supplies means a contract for building, construction, fabrication, completion, erection, installation, fitting out, improvement, modification, repair, maintenance, renovation, alteration, or commissioning of any immovable property wherein transfer of property in goods, whether as goods or in some other form, is involved in the execution of such contract. Okay, supply of services. Supply by way of or as part of any service or in any other manner whatsoever of goods being food or any other article for human consumption, or any drink other than alcoholic liquor for human consumption, where such supply or service is for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Supply of services. Okay, now from tomorrow we will see this taxability of tenancy rights. We have completed the second segment, which is round 3 of page number 43 to 52 completed. Now let us proceed to yesterday's target, yesterday's coverage, round 2 of page number 66 to 72. to 72. Composite supplies. Composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient and comprises two or more taxable supplies of goods or services, or both, or any combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. This means that in a composite supply, goods or services or both are bundled owing to natural necessities. The elements in a composite supply are dependent on the principal supply. Principal supply means the supply of goods or services which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply, and to which any other supply forming part of that composite supply is ancillary. Works contract and restaurant services are classic examples of composite supplies, but the GST law identifies both as supply of services. Just now we read that provision, and chargeable to specific rate of tax mentioned against each of such services, works contract or restaurant. However, in respect of other composite supplies other than the two categories mentioned above, the need to determine the supply as a composite one will arise so as to determine the appropriate classification of such supply as supply of goods or supply of services, as also the appropriate rate of tax. It will be necessary to determine as to whether a particular supply is naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business and what constitutes principal supply in such composite supplies. How to determine whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business. Whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business or not would depend upon the normal or frequent practices followed in the area of business to which services relate. Such normal and frequent practices adopted in a business can be ascertained from several indicators, some of which are listed below. The perception of the consumer of or the service recipient. If large number of service recipient of such bundle of services reasonably expect such services to be provided as a package, then such a package could be treated as naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Mobile phones is always sold with battery. Majority of service providers in a particular area of business provide similar bundle of services of catering on board and services of transport by air is a bundle offered by majority of airlines. The nature of the various services in a bundle of services will also help in determining whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business. If the nature of services is such that one of the services is the main service and the other services combined with such service are in the future or in the nature of incidental or ancillary services which help in better enjoyment of a main service, then it would be treated as services bundled in the ordinary course of business. Service of stay in a hotel is often combined with the provision of breakfast and dinner provided free of cost during the stay. Such service is an ancillary service to the provision of hotel accommodation, and the resultant package would be treated as services naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Other illustrative indicators, not determinative but indicative of bundling of services in the ordinary course of business, are there is a single price or the customer pays the same amount no matter how much of the package they actually receive or use. The elements are normally advertised as a package. The different elements are not available separately. The different elements are integral to one overall supply. If one or more is removed, the nature of supply would be affected. No straitjacket formula can be laid down to determine whether a service is naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Each has to be individually examined in the backdrop of several factors, some of which are outlined above. The above principles, explained in the light of what constitutes a naturally bundled service, can be gainfully adopted to determine whether a particular supply constitutes a composite supply under GST, and if so, what constitutes the principal supply, so as to determine the right classification and rate of tax of such composite supply. Some of the examples of composite supplies have been given below. A 5-star hotel is booked for a conference of 100 delegates on a lump sum package with the following facilities: accommodation for the delegates, breakfast for the delegates, tea and coffee during conference, access to fitness room for the delegates, availability of conference room, business center. As is evident, a bouquet of services is being provided. Many of them are chargeable to different effective rates of tax. If the principal service is described as convention service, it is able to capture the entire essence of the package. Thus, the principal service may be judged as convention service and charged to tax accordingly. However, it will be fully justifiable for the hotel to charge individually for the services as long as there is no attempt to offload the value of one service onto another service that is chargeable at a concessional rate. Okay, moving on. Poshak manufacturers entered into a contract with Chico Limited for supply of ready-made shirts packed in designer boxes at Chico Limited's outlet. Further, Poshak manufacturers would also get them insured during transit. In this case, supply of goods, packing material, transport and insurance is a composite supply, wherein supply of goods is a principal supply. When a consumer buys a television set and he also gets mandatory warranty and a maintenance contract with the TV, this supply is a composite supply. In this example, supply of TV is the principal supply, warranty and maintenance services are ancillary. A travel ticket from Mumbai to Delhi may include service of food being served on board, free insurance, and the use of airport lounge. In this case, the transportation of passenger constitutes the predominant element of the composite supply and is treated as the principal supply, and all other supplies are ancillary. How to determine tax liability on composite supplies? A composite supply comprising of two or more supplies, one of which is a principal supply, shall be treated as supply of such principal supply. Accordingly, the entire value of composite supply, that is main and ancillary supply, shall be classified under the category of main supply and shall be taxed at the GST rate of applicable to the main supply. This can be better understood with the help of following examples. Example: Rati Computers supplies laptop worth rupees 52,000 along with the laptop bag worth rupees 3,000 to a customer for 55,000. Being naturally bundled, supply of laptop bag along with the laptop is composite supply, which is treated as the supply of the principal supply. Assuming that the rate applicable on laptop is 18 and bag is 28, in the given case, the rate of principal supply, that is laptop at 18%, will be charged on the entire value of 55,000. Okay, so CBSE has given some more clarification. Let us read them. Printing industry issues. The printing industry in India in particular faced a dilemma in determining whether the nature of supply provided was that of goods or services. Another doubt was whether in case where certain contracts involved both supply of goods and services, whether the same would be constitute a supply of goods or that of services. If it would be a composite supply, and in that case it is, then what would And in case it is, then what would constitute the principal supply? Thus, it is clarified that supply of books, pamphlets, brochures, envelopes, annual reports, leaflets, cartons, boxes printed with logo, design, name, address, or other contents supplied by the recipient of such printed goods or composite supplies, and the question whether such supplies constitute supply of goods or services would be determined on the basis of what constitutes the principal supply. In the case of printing of books, pamphlets, brochures, annual reports, and the like, where only content is supplied by the publisher or the person who owns the usage rights to the intangible inputs, while the physical inputs, including paper used for printing, belongs to the printer. Supply of printing is the principal supply, and therefore such supplies would constitute supply of services. However, in case of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, tissues, napkins, wallpaper, etc., printer using its physical inputs, including the paper to print the design logo supplied by the recipient of goods, predominant supply is supply of goods, and the supply of printing of the content is ancillary to the principal supply of goods, and therefore such supplies would constitute supply of goods. Food supplied to the patients. Food supplied to the inpatients as advised by the doctor, nutritionists, is a part of composite supply of health care and not separately taxable. Other supplies of food by a hospital to patients or their attendants or visitors are taxable. Okay. Activity of bus body building. In the case of bus body building, there is supply of goods and services. Thus, classification of this composite supply as good or service would depend on which supply is the principal supply, which may be determined on the basis of facts and circumstances of each case. Retreading of tires. In retreading of tires, which is a composite supply, the predominant element is the process of retreading, which is a service. Rubber used for retreading is an ancillary supply. Therefore, supply of retreaded tires where the old tires belong to the supplier of retreaded tires is a supply of goods. Retreaded tires are revamped tires on which the worn out tread is replaced using new tread. Okay. In retreading of tires in normal situation, it is treated as supply of service. However, supply of retreaded tires where the old tires belong to the supplier of retreaded tires is a supply of goods. I don't understand this part. Yesterday also I was little confused. Now the confusion has only become bigger. See, in retreading of tires, I will own the tire in the first place. I will give it to the, let's say, this factory who does the retreading of tires, or let's say the mechanic who does the retreading. So he will make the tire, he will improve the tire and he will give it back to me. So the process of retreading is a service. Rubber used for that retreading is an ancillary supply. That part is understandable. The second part I am not able to understand. Supply of retreaded tires where the old tires belong to the supplier of retreaded tires. In either case, it will belong to the supplier only, isn't it? So now let's keep this as an open loop, and anyway we will proceed. Supply of food and beverages at cinema halls taxable as restaurant service. Eating joint is a wide term which includes refreshment of eating stalls, kiosks, counters, or restaurant at cinema halls. The cinema operator may run these refreshment, eating stall, kiosks, counters, restaurant themselves, or they may give it on contract to a third party. The customer may like to avail the services supplied by these refreshment or snack counters or choose not to avail these services. Further, the cinema operator can also install vending machines or supply any recreational service such as through coin operated machines, etc., which a customer may or may not avail. It is hereby clarified that supply of food or beverages in a cinema hall is taxable as restaurant service as long as the food or beverages are supplied by way of or as part of a service and supplied independent. Baby, 2 minutes, baby, I'll come. It is hereby clarified that supply of food or beverages in a cinema hall is taxable as restaurant service as long as the food or beverages are supplied by way of or as part of a service and supplied independent of the cinema exhibition service, where the sale of cinema ticket and supply of food and beverages are clubbed together and such bundled supply satisfy the test of composite supply, the entire supply will attract GST rate at the rate at which the entire supply will attract GST at the rate applicable to service of exhibition of cinema, the principal supply. Thus, we have concluded round 2 of what we studied yesterday. So, this is completed. Now, we have only 2 pages to complete this chapter. So, we will do that now and we can wrap up today's session. Okay, mixed supplies. Mixed supply means 2 or more individual supplies of goods or services or any combination thereof made in conjunction with each other by a taxable person for a single price where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. The individual supplies are independent of each other and are not naturally bundled. How to determine if a supply is a mixed supply? In order to identify if the particular supply is a mixed supply, the first requisite is to rule out that the supply is a composite supply. A supply can be a mixed supply only if it is not a composite supply. As a corollary, it can be said that if the transaction consists of supplies not naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business, then the possibility of it being a mixed supply needs to be checked. Once the amenability of the transaction as a composite supply is ruled out and a single consideration is charged for the entire supply of different components, it would be treated as a mixed supply classified in terms of supply of goods or services attracting highest rate of tax. A supply of package consisting of canned foods, sweets, chocolates, cakes, dry fruits, aerated drink and fruit juices when supplied for a single price is a mixed supply. Each of these items can be supplied separately and is not dependent on any other. It shall not be a mixed supply if these items are supplied separately or separate prices are charged. A shopkeeper selling storage water bottles along with refrigerator for a single price. Bottles and the refrigerator can be easily priced and sold indifferently and are not naturally bundled. Such supplies are mixed supplies. A house is given on rent through a single rent deed, one floor of which is to be used as residence and the other house for a printing press at a lump sum rent amount. Such renting for 2 different purposes is not naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Said supplies are a mixed one supply. How to determine the tax liability on mixed supply? A mixed supply comprising of 2 or more supplies shall be treated as supply that attracts highest rate of tax. Sringar Enterprises supplies 10,000 kits at 50 each, amounting to 5 lakh rupees to Raghav General Store. Each kit consists of 1 shampoo, 1 face wash and 1 kajal pencil. It is a mixed supply and is treated as supply of that particular supply which attracts the highest rate of tax. Assuming that the rate of tax applicable on shampoo is 18, face wash is 28, on kajal pencil is 12. In the given case, highest tax rate face wash of 28% will be charged on the entire value of 5 lakhs. More than one supply made together and taxed at individual rates. There can also be a case where an activity or transaction involves more than one supply of goods or services or both, but neither they are composite nor can be categorized as mixed supplies. That is, all supplies carry independent significance. In such a case, if separate consideration is indicated against each supply shall be charged at the respective rate applicable to that supply. In case of servicing cars involving supply of both goods and services, where the value of goods and services are shown separately, the goods and services would be liable to tax at the applicable rates to such goods and services separately. I can give you one more example. Uh, we had air conditioners installed in our house. So when I checked the bill, the rate for air conditioner is completely different, but the installation service is also quoted in the same bill, but the numbers have been given separately. uh, Base price of the air conditioner was given separately, and then the aluminum coil, all those things, the coil and wire, the other accessories, stabilizer, they have been given separately, and then finally installation charges were given separately. So something had 28% GST, something had like 18% GST, something had like 12% GST. So even GST itself, they gave it like 2-3 line items, and finally they gave the total value of the bill. So that is given here. So it is neither a composite supply nor mixed supply. So one thing I can understand is, if even if it is a composite or mixed supply, the final number will be given as one number. Because if you, let's say, restaurant providing complimentary breakfast is an example of composite supply. So you don't see in the restaurant bill two separate line items: money for renting out our room and money for complimentary breakfast. You don't see two separate breakup of the data. And similarly, you take a mixed supply like an assorted material, let's say gift package, gift wrapper, assorted gift package, dry fruits and all 2-3 items, almonds, cashews, all those things assorted will be there. So they will sell it as a single product, and they will sell it at a single MRP, and billing will be done on an individual basis. So in that situation, highest GST, whatever the product has that highest GST rate, that will be taken. So on that note, we will update the progress here. So quickly let us do this quiz and finish this. Jaskaran supplies gift packages at 30 rupees each to its customers. Each package consists of 2 chocolates, 2 fruit juice and juice bottles, and packet of toy balloons. The rate of GST applicable on chocolates, fruit juice bottles and toy balloons are 18, 12 and 5% respectively. Jaskaran is liable to pay GST at what? Whichever is the highest rate, because gift package at 30 rupees to its customers. So it is like a mixed supply, because you can sell fruit juice separately, chocolate separately and toy balloon separately, but you add them together and sell it in a single bundle as a gift package for 30 rupees. So in that situation, 18 rupees on the price charged for the gift package. So this will be the answer B. So we have completed this chapter 72 to 75. So tomorrow, most likely we will be starting with the next chapter, which is charge of GST, I think. So whatever is in the sequence, we will start that tomorrow. I'm happy to inform that, I'm happy to realize that in 2 weeks, in 16 study sessions, we have completed 2 chapters, particularly Supply Under GST, a little lengthy chapter. In the same progress, in the same speed, we will go tomorrow and we'll start charge of GST. Thank you for joining me in today's session. I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.